What up, guys? I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of my favorite pieces of range gear, one of my favorite training tools. This is a tatargets C-Zone steel. I'm not personally sponsored by them, even though I wish I was. This isn't an ad for them necessarily, but I am for the people, and I do want to help people excel at their training and kind of cut the bullshit. There's a lot of shills in our industry, like there is in any industry really, but it seems to be like a glaring issue in the firearms community. So I wanted to talk about some of the gear that I do think is a good value. So tatargets makes different steel products and some paper stuff too. I had purchased this a couple years back. This is the C-Zone steel, 1/2 inch. As you can see, it has the silhouette sticks if you want to use paper, or 2x4 for this steel. It's pretty heavy duty. The reason why I wanted to talk about it is because when I first got into like shooting, like really training hard, I was like, I want to buy steel. I want to hear. I want to have like an audible feedback for my training. And I started looking at steel places and steel companies, and I was like, a lot of this stuff's kind of expensive, and I don't really know what I'm looking at. I had friends that had steel. Some of them maybe had a custom, silhouette made from a shop locally, and then they build the rest of the rig. Some people had just bought the standard Bass Pro Shop, Turner's Outdoorsman steel setup, things like that. And when I first got into shooting, I didn't really have the most money, so I would invest in little things at a time, like the little circle silhouette things that are 3/8 steel, and then I'd shoot that with an AR-15, and then all of a sudden it pierces it, and I'm like, well, that's no good, and it's not even audible. So I'm like, I'm shooting it, and you really can't hear it unless you have really sensitive ear pro. And I obviously record everything, and I get feedback for my own training, but also because I like to create content and help others. And things like that weren't working out for me, kind of going the cheaper route. So I started looking into some real target systems to benefit my training. Now, I've been to a lot of different courses and shooting events. I've heard all the spiels from all the other competitor companies, whether it's I'm not gonna name any names, but whether it's a different look silhouette, maybe it's different angles, multiple pieces, or maybe it's the same looking silhouette with just a slightly different base or a slightly different mounting system. Either way, the competitors all have their own variation, but they all pretty much do the same thing, unless we're talking about a humanoid, type of shape. Unless it's a specific shape, most of them are a C-Zone steel, or tatargets also offers, these are the little paper cardboard silhouettes that I like to use when I'm training by myself, when I'm not using other people's targets. It's either these, so you can see how big they are, or the triple feed paper targets. Those are pretty much the only two targets I use when I'm not training with people. If I use paper, and obviously I do a lot of steel. Again, tatargets makes one this size. I'm going to be picking it up sometime here soon, because I do like shooting for smaller targets. Obviously aim small, miss small, that kind of thing. Anyway, no matter what kind of stuff I've seen from these other companies, and I've seen a lot of other ones at the range in action, or the people at SHOT Show talking about their products, the bottom line is that I hear stuff about products and I use products, and I basically just like to find out for myself when it comes to gear. More so with my firearm stuff than my camera gear. My camera gear, I watch a ton of reviews and I kind of just trust that, and that works for me. Firearm stuff, considering that majority of my training is for preparedness and self-defense, I kind of like to know on the training side of things, my own experiences with these products before I just carry them or trust my life with them, right? Anyway, this relates to firearms training, so that's why I'm talking about this. There's other names that are just as big, if not bigger, that I've seen pushed by bigger names, bigger influencer names, other training companies that have a larger presence than me. And I can honestly say that I'm not going to speak for them, but I feel as though after shooting with something like this, that's this consistent, that holds up this well, like I said, I've had mine for 2 years, thousands of rounds of 9mm, all the pistol calibers, some 308, not a lot, and a lot of 5.56, 223. For it to go through all that and then to know some of these people and meet some of these people that are bigger names than me in the community, have more influence, use a different brand, to me that looks like there's some shilling going on. I'm not going to speak for them, I'm just guessing here, but I've seen a lot of other training systems either just not perform as well in terms of audibly, or are much harder to set up, or I've seen a lot of them break. Believe it or not, I've seen a lot of these popular companies break. Like fall off the hanger. The only time this thing falls over is when the 2x4 gets shot up, and that's going to happen with anything that uses wood, right? So replacing a $4 piece of 2x4, I'll do that any day. I've replaced this thing dozens of times. That's okay with me. It's not acceptable to have to replace hangers on a regular basis though, especially when we're talking more expensive, higher reputable steel target companies, right? I'm not going to speak on other companies and their pricing and what their goal is. I know with TA targets, I paid about $320-ish for this one. I thought that was really expensive when I bought it. I'm not going to lie. But I've seen T-Rex Arms use it a bunch, and I was like, well, you know, if they shoot that much and they use it that much, it's probably okay. I think they seem like honest people for the most part. They don't seem like they're fans of shilling. So I went with it, and I'm glad I went with it because, again, other competitors in the same price range, I've seen them just straight up break. And I have videos of them straight up breaking and being like, wow, awesome. Like, that just ruined our range session because we have, you know, a $250 to $300 steel silhouette that just straight broke off the hanger or whatever the situation was. So with this, it's really simple and it works really well. When I say simple, I mean it's literally just this top piece, a 2x4, and then a base. Or if you're using paper, you put these into the base. Really simple. You don't gotta be fucking rocket scientist to figure this out. Really easy to lug around. It kind of just takes up this much space in my Jeep. I'm a super fan of it, dude, honestly. And I'm making this video because I want other people to know that just because other people are shilling doesn't necessarily mean that, like, oh, if he uses it, it's gonna be good. I kind of took a leap of faith by trusting that, you know, Lucas hasn't had a really big reputation of shilling, so I was like, you know, I think out of everybody, I kind of trust his steel target opinion. If you shoot steel, I think there's a place for everything. I think paper and steel should be half and half for different reasons, but that's another conversation. So I don't know. I think that either way, if you're going to be one of those people who goes to the range often, like I have friends, and I've been to plenty of ranges recently where people are running events, and sandbags, if you don't have the right sandbag for the base, if you don't have a strong base, things like that, the target just knocks over and knocks over and knocks over. I see it many times, different groups of people, different training groups, happens all the time. I've never had this happen. Even if I'm not shooting steel, I'm just shooting the base with paper targets, it's never happened. So even the base itself has so much value. And you would think with this silhouette, shooting with a cant like this, which is really good for protecting the end user, right? Because it deflects the bullets downwards rather than just being flat and then kind of spilling them everywhere. I've been to uspsa matches where I've gotten hit multiple times with 9mm because they just use cheap steel. Anyways, this base looks like it's scratched up, but it's not structurally messed up or broken in any type of way. It's structurally sound still, and it's accepting all these rifle rounds going directly into it. To me, that seems like this is well thought out, really easy to put together, and it just holds up. I can honestly say that I have like a couple little chips on the bolt here. Hasn't affected performance, and I've had the thing for a couple of years and ran thousands and thousands of rounds with me and my friends. Anybody who doesn't have a TA target steel that I've trained with or any events that I went to, it's always an issue. There's always sandbags involved. There's always like weird little specks of metal bouncing back at you because the angle isn't as aggressive as like the TA targets. They're like upright rather than canted down. And honestly, I've shot pretty close with with rifle rounds on here on 5.56. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying, like, I have gone within like 10 yards of shooting this thing with rifle rounds, and that's kind of sketchy, but that's how much I've seen the bullet trajectory deflect in a consistent direction over and over again that I trusted it. So I mean, as you can tell, I'm a fan of this thing. For 300 bucks, it's worth missing the headaches of, did you bring sandbags? Did you fill them up with sand? What base did you bring? Is it extended all the way? Does this base, you know, flippy flop on the terrain that we're on? Most of the time I'm outdoors. This isn't indoor shooting. In different places, different states all the time. I think that you would get rid of a lot of headache and have a more consistent, more reliable training session if you had one of these. I only have one of these, and it's good for paper and steel. And honestly, things like these little chips, it's probably because I like to move around a lot. I run side to side, forward and back, and sometimes I'll be shooting this thing at like a crazy angle to where I'm shooting a soft part on the very edge. Probably shouldn't be shooting that wide out, but I move around a lot. What can I say? But yeah, if you can't tell, I love this thing. I think it's a great value, and there's always going to be people who like building the Garage Queen, who just spend all their money making a cool looking Instagram gun. That's fine. It's America. Do whatever you want. If you claim to be somebody who values training, these are the types of things you need to be investing in. Things like a consistent target system that's never going to fail you. Things like actual training courses and ammo. Not like your 5th trigger, even though I sell triggers, I know. But you can ask anybody who works with me. I tell them training first, consistent training. This isn't like something that is like there's no repercussions of fucking up your training here. Like, this is like a very serious hobby to be into, or form of self-defense to be into. So everything that you should be doing, even if it's just for fun, should have consistency or should be highly controlled. So anyway, I'll drop a bunch of clips in here if you haven't already seen them, of me shooting this thing over the last 2 years, from long range, close range. I'll do another video on why I use steel and why I use paper, isolation stuff. But yeah, TA targets, good shit.